Hello and good evening. I am Gushin Galan and you're watching Vantage. Donald Trump is making headlines again, this time with a nuclear allegation that's triggered global concern. In a televised interview, Trump claimed that Pakistan has resumed nuclear testing. He didn't stop there. He also named Russia, China and North Korea, and then declared, "We are going to test because others are testing." Pakistan was quick to deny the claim, calling it baseless. China has also dismissed Trump's statement. Trump's remarks are not backed by evidence, but they have reopened an old fault line. They have put the world's focus back on Pakistan's nuclear program and raised the specter of a new global arms race. Also on the show, after Venezuela, why Trump has ordered a CIA op in Mexico. All about China's new shape-shifting missile. Why Starbucks is retreating from the Chinese market. How Typhoon Kalmegi has wreaked havoc in the Philippines. Why Indian students are facing record visa rejections. And why Sicily could soon become Europe's next dessert. But first, the headlines. Typhoon Kalmegi floods swathes of central Philippines. At least 26 people have been killed and hundreds of thousands have been displaced. Entire towns on the island of Cebu have been inundated. Floodwaters swept away cars, trucks and even massive shipping containers. Donald Trump backs Andrew Cuomo in the New York City mayor's race. The US president has threatened to withhold federal funds if Zohran Mamdani is elected. Polls show Mamdani is leading the race. Trump has called Mamdani a communist, a label that the left-wing frontrunner has rejected. Tanzania eases some restrictions after its election violence. A curfew and an internet blackout have been partially lifted. The president was declared the winner of the October polls, but the opposition has called the election a sham. Norway's sovereign wealth fund rejects Elon Musk's $1 trillion Tesla pay deal. The fund is one of Tesla's 10 largest shareholders. Tesla shareholders will weigh Musk's pay package at a meeting in Texas on Thursday. The electric car maker is currently worth $1 trillion. And Singapore plans to punish online scammers with at least 6 strokes with a cane. The city-state is doubling down on syndicates following record-high scam losses. Singapore is Southeast Asia's second-largest economy. It lost more than $2.8 billion through scams from 2020 till 2025. Donald Trump has a new obsession. From claiming he could end wars, he could now be instigating a new weapons race. Trump has made a stunning claim. He says Pakistan is testing nuclear weapons again. Trump sat down with CBS for an interview. He accused several countries of conducting secret nuclear tests. He claimed Russia has resumed testing. He said China was testing, but nobody talks about it. He added, North Korea tests constantly. And he said Pakistan was also conducting nuclear tests. Then he declared, "We are going to test because others are testing." So, in no uncertain terms, Trump said Pakistan is testing nukes. It's difficult to verify Trump's claims, but it's led to some sharp reactions. Pakistan was quick to issue a rebuttal. It called the statement baseless. And I quote, "Pakistan was not the first to carry out nuclear tests and will not be the first to resume nuclear tests." End quote. Pakistan's last known nuclear test was in 1998, soon after India's test in Pokhran. Pakistan claims it hasn't conducted a test since then and observed a unilateral moratorium on testing. And to be fair, Trump didn't offer any evidence to back up his claims. But Pakistan's nuclear infrastructure remains opaque. Its testing sites are heavily guarded and there's no international monitoring on the ground. despite active presence of terrorist groups in the country. Moreover, recent events don't inspire confidence either. In September, Pakistan's Field Marshal Asim Munir made the headlines. He issued a direct nuclear threat. Munir was visiting the US. He delivered an address in Florida. Munir said, and I quote, "We are a nuclear nation. If we are going down, we will take half the world down with us." End quote. India was quick to condemn the remarks. New Delhi termed it nuclear saber rattling. Now Trump, with his latest statement, has put the spotlight back on Pakistan's nuclear program. In the same breath, he also called out China. Like Islamabad, Beijing too issued a sharp response. It called Trump's claims completely false. China says it remains committed to its moratorium on testing, and it urged the US to do the same. Beijing is pushing back against Trump's latest plan. The US president wants to resume nuclear testing. Last week, he released a post on Truth Social. Trump said he had instructed the Department of War. He wants America to test nukes on equal basis. Over the weekend, Trump's energy secretary spoke out. That's Chris Wright. He said Trump's order doesn't include nuclear explosions. Now Trump has given an interview and spoken directly on the subject. He is using his claims against Russia, North Korea, China, and Pakistan to bolster his case. Trump says all four are testing and the US must follow suit to match them. This has left nuclear experts worried. They fear Trump's moves could have serious consequences because America is the world's biggest nuclear power. If the US decides to ramp up testing, it could lead to a chain reaction. It could force rivals like Russia and China to scale up their own nuclear programs. Trump calls himself the president of peace. He says nuclear testing is about strength and security. But his decision may end up having the opposite impact. It could spark a new global arms race. It could legitimize secret programs. It could push countries like Pakistan to cross the nuclear threshold too. And this would have consequences for countries like India. The moment one country breaks the silence, the rest will be bound to follow the noise. The nuclear age never truly ended. It was paused. And now that pause may be over. The US government seems to have a new target, its neighbor Mexico. Reports suggest the government is sketching some new plans. It plans to send American troops and intel officers into Mexico. This is to go after drug cartels. Some of those forces are already being trained. That's what reports claim. The focus will be on drone strikes and covert operation, very similar to what the US has been doing in Venezuela. But why Mexico now? And what does this plan mean for the region? Now think of this as a mission sketch. Reports suggest it's all just a plan now. The idea is target the drug trade in Mexico, both their leaders and the infrastructure. They can strike drug labs with drones, go after cartel leaders with drones. There could even be some personnel on the ground, which is why there's training of ground teams. Officials say a decision hasn't been made yet, that this is not an imminent invasion, but this is more like an option, a plan kept on the back burner. Now, this isn't the first time US is targeting Mexico's drug trade. It has long provided surveillance training and covert assistance. But all this was to help the Mexican government. What's new here is the unilateral action. Earlier this year, the Trump administration issued an executive framework. It said it would treat major cartels as transnational terrorist actors. In February, the State Department formally designated a set of cartels as FTO, that is, foreign terrorist organizations. This makes it easier to plan cross-border operations. And now, these new plans have led to backlash. So what is Mexico saying about this? Publicly, Mexico's president has rejected unilateral US military action on Mexican soil. Mexico does cooperate with US on intelligence and extraditions. It even deploys its own troops against traffickers. but letting US forces operate is tricky territory. Mexico insists on sovereignty. Washington also says it prefers coordination, but there's a caveat. The US won't rule out solo action if US security is at stake. That tension is why the White House says many missions would stay secret. And it is not much different from what the US is doing in the region. Take Venezuela, for example. In 2 months, US strikes have killed at least 60 people. Washington says it was targeting drug smuggling boats that are vessels carrying narcotics. But Caracas disagrees. It says this isn't counter-narcotics, it's war. And the real goal is regime change. Meanwhile, the US military buildup keeps growing. Warships, bombers, fighter jets, drones, Marines. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's biggest aircraft carrier, is now in the Caribbean. Reports say new targets inside Venezuela have been identified. Ports, airstrips, naval bases. These are all key points on suspected drug routes. Washington has long called Venezuela a narco state, and it's no secret the US wants Nicolas Maduro out. Donald Trump was asked about it recently. He says he doesn't want war, but in his words, Maduro's days are numbered. The Trump administration has framed these actions as decisive action against narco-terrorists. For a domestic audience, that messaging plays well. Internationally, it provokes questions about sovereignty, and cartels are not proto-states in a tidy way, nor are they conventional military targets. They are hybrid criminal networks. Strike a lab and the cartel moves production. Dismantle leadership and someone rushes to fill the vacuum. So it isn't as easy as the Trump administration says. Where does that leave us? For now, this looks like a menu of options, not a declaration of war, a way for Washington to keep pressure on cartels. But if things escalate, it could change things in the region. China has taken another step in hypersonic weapons research, this time with a prototype missile. It is being called the shape-shifting missile. Why? Because it can change shape mid-flight. The missile apparently features a pair of retractable wings. It is not operational yet. Like I said, this is a working prototype. But the technology signals a new shift. Will this usher in an era of shape-shifting weapons? Our next report tells you.
Think aircraft meets transformer meets Mach 5 rocket. This missile can retract and deploy wings depending on what it needs in flight. Need raw speed? Wings tuck in with the missile slicing the air. Need agility to dodge defenses or hit moving targets? Wings flip out, turning it into a glide-dancing predator. In other words, this is a weapon that chooses. It can choose speed when it's safe or maneuverability when it's hunted. Until now, hyperspeed flight and sharp turning were mutually exclusive. But China may be rewriting that physics problem. You see, traditional hypersonic weapons are extremely fast, but not very agile. China's design aims to break that trade-off. How? By combining all of the following: hypersonic speed, high maneuverability, and unpredictable flight paths. This would make interception significantly harder. Current missile defense systems rely on predicting a missile's trajectory. A weapon that alters shape and course severely complicates that, and this wasn't an easy task. Changing shape at hypersonic speeds is extremely difficult. Temperatures exceed 2,000 degrees Celsius. The airflow becomes unstable. Moving parts create vibration and control issues. Flight computers must react in milliseconds. The Chinese team claims to have built a control algorithm, one that stabilizes the wings during repositioning and prevents destructive vibrations. It works in real time on onboard processors. They tested it using hardware-in-loop simulation, meaning real components and computer systems were used. So this is lab-tested. But think of it as proof of concept. The technology works in controlled conditions, but practical deployment will take some time, and it's not the only one. China isn't only experimenting with a shapeshifter, they're building a whole ecosystem, a prototype global missile defense platform. Drawing comparisons to Trump's Golden Dome, China is also testing sixth-generation fighter prototypes, the so-called J-36 among others. Like the missile, these jets are prototypes. They are impressive on paper, showing promising technology in trials, but not yet operational or battle-proven. And that is the reality of all of these ideas. On paper, this is a breakthrough, a missile that can sprint like a bullet, then twist like a fighter jet, a defense network that claims to watch the entire planet. Fighter jets experimenting with AI combat instincts. But here's the truth beneath the headlines. All of this is still prototype territory. No battlefield proof, no real-world stress test, no confirmation that it works outside controlled simulations and test ranges. So this shape-shifting missile may sound like science fiction, because for now, it is a glimpse of tomorrow, not a weapon of today.
Now let's talk about Starbucks. The global coffee giant is making a retreat in China. It's handing over control of its China business. So who is buying out Starbucks now? It's a local private equity firm called Boyo Capital. Together, they'll run a joint venture. Boyo will own the majority of the business, which is 60%. Starbucks will keep the other 40%, and it will continue licensing the brand. But the message is clear. Starbucks is stepping back. This is one of the most recognized brands in the world, a symbol of Western consumer culture. And now it's becoming the latest global giant to retreat from the Chinese market. So what went wrong? Let's break it down. First, the basics. Starbucks entered China in 1999. It opened its first store in Beijing. Since then, it expanded rapidly. Today, Starbucks has around 8,000 outlets across China. For years, the company saw China as a key growth market. But that story has changed. Sales have slowed, costs are rising, and local players are getting stronger. That's not just a Starbucks problem. It's a wider trend. Western companies across the board are struggling in China. This includes names like Apple, Volkswagen, and LVMH. They all have struggled to boost their sales. Let's look at the earnings of American and European players. In 2021, they earned $670 billion in China. That was 15% of their global revenue. By 2023, revenue dropped to $650 billion. And the China share slipped to 14%. It's a small dip, but a steady one. And enough to worry global boardrooms. A survey by Bain & Company offers more insight. It spoke to 166 CEOs and COOs. Back in 2022, 55% wanted to leave China. They were thinking about shifting operations. By 2024, that number jumped to 69%. That's a big shift. And it raises an important question. Why are so many companies pulling back? Reason number one, local competition. Chinese companies are now dominating key sectors in the auto industry. Local brands sell 69% of all cars. That's nearly double the share from just 4 years ago. The same trend is playing out in food and drinks. Starbucks' biggest competitor in China is Luckin Coffee. It's a local brand. It sells a latte for 9.9 yuan. That's about $1.40 and less than 1/3 of Starbucks prices. Then there's Mishu, a homegrown ice cream and drinks chain. It's pulling customers away from global brands like Häagen-Dazs. That's to its cheaper offerings. These aren't just budget brands. They are local, culturally rooted, and they are connecting with Chinese consumers in ways global brands are not. Reason number two, changing consumer behavior. Shoppers in China are becoming more frugal. People are cutting back on luxury spending. They are turning to discount platforms like Taobao. They are choosing cheaper, local alternatives over premium imports. This price sensitivity is hitting big brands hard. because they are built on high margins and not discount pricing. Reason number 3, economic and political headwinds. China's economy has slowed, consumer demand is weak. Add to that the ongoing trade war, the American tariffs, and tighter regulations on foreign companies. All of this has created an environment, one where global brands find it harder to grow and easier to leave. That's where Starbucks comes in. The company is optimistic about the joint venture. It says it will help reshape its business in China. It is selling the idea as a long-term strategic partnership. But the numbers tell a different story. Starbucks isn't expanding in China the way it used to. Local brands are faster, cheaper, and more popular. So instead of pouring in more investment, it is handing over the reins and keeping a smaller stake in the game. This is not a full exit, but it is a reset, a sign that even the world's most powerful brands have limits in China. Our next story is from the Philippines. A powerful typhoon has left parts of the country underwater. It is called Kalmegi. It has turned roads into rivers and cities into lakes. Cars have been swept away and shipping containers have floated through the streets. The storm made landfall late Monday night, and the rains have been relentless ever since. At least 26 people have lost their lives. Hundreds and thousands have been forced to flee. Coast Guard teams are evacuating stranded residents. But amid those efforts, a military helicopter has crashed. The Philippines has already faced multiple storms this year, and Kalmegi is the latest to test the country's resilience. Here's a report with more.
The Philippines is once again facing the fury of nature. Typhoon Kalmegi has swept across the central parts of the country. It has flooded towns, torn down power lines, and cut off entire communities. The storm made landfall late Monday night with winds of 150 kilometers per hour. In some areas, gusts exceeded 200 kilometers an hour. By Tuesday morning, streets, farms, and homes were submerged. In just a few hours, whole neighborhoods were underwater. The damage stretched across the central provinces, where floodwaters rose faster than anyone expected. Cars and shipping containers were swept away. People escaped to rooftops and waited for rescue. At least 26 people are confirmed dead. Most victims were caught in flash floods. Hundreds of thousands have been displaced. Many are now in temporary shelters run by local authorities and aid groups. The Coast Guard has been leading the rescue effort. Teams are moving through submerged streets with boats and trucks. More than 300,000 people were evacuated before landfall, but rescue operations are still underway. Several towns remain isolated after bridges collapsed and roads were cut off by flooding. Rescue work has been hampered by debris and strong currents. Flights and ferry services remain suspended. Power and phone networks are down in several areas. Relief workers say food, clean water, and medicine are now the priority. During one relief mission, a military helicopter crashed in northern Mindanao Island. The Super Huey helicopter was delivering supplies when it crashed. 5 personnel were on board. Search and recovery teams are continuing to look for survivors. Even as rescue efforts continue, weather officials say Kalmegi is now moving west over the South China Sea. It has weakened, but still poses a threat to countries like Vietnam, where it could make landfall later this week. Vietnam has also issued warnings for coastal provinces and asked fishing boats to return to port. The Philippines faces about 20 tropical storms every year. Kalmegi is reportedly the 20th storm this year. Just weeks ago, Typhoon Ragasa battered the country. It tore roofs off buildings and uprooted trees. Now, Kalmegi has added to a growing list of disasters this year for the country. Meteorologists say warmer seas are fueling stronger, wetter systems. They are bringing heavier rain and faster flooding. Experts warn that successive storms are giving communities less time to recover. For now, parts of the country remain underwater. Rescue teams are still at work. Power lines are being repaired, and thousands of families are waiting to return home. Authorities say recovery will take time. Kalmegi has moved on, but its impact will be felt long after the waters recede.
Our next story is about OpenAI. At this point, tracking the ChatGPT maker's deals is like watching Formula One pit stops. They are fast and high stakes. Also, somehow more expensive every time you blink. The latest deal is this one, a $38 billion agreement with Amazon Web Services. Under this deal, OpenAI will tap into AWS data centers, also a massive supply of NVIDIA superchips. This is for training and running its next wave of AI models. And there's a strategic shift here. For years, Microsoft was its exclusive cloud partner. Now, OpenAI is spreading its workloads across multiple tech giants. It gives it more freedom and more computing power. And it's not the only one. OpenAI expects to spend $1.4 trillion on AI infrastructure. And the 2025 contract book backs him up. Look at these deals. A $500 billion deal with Stargate, a $100 billion deal with NVIDIA, another $100 billion deal with AMD, this $38 billion deal with AWS, $25 billion deal with Intel, another $20 billion with TSMC, the world's largest semiconductor manufacturer, a $13 billion deal with Microsoft, a $10 billion deal each with Broadcom and Oracle. The total is over $800 billion. So why is OpenAI rushing to sign these deals? This year, OpenAI formally restructured into a for-profit corporation. It is still controlled by a non-profit parent, but it matters because of two things. OpenAI can now raise massive capital, and it also paves the path for an IPO. This is an initial public offering. Reports claim OpenAI is preparing for one. We don't know when it will happen, but the valuation has raised a few eyebrows. OpenAI is planning an IPO at a valuation of $1 trillion. $1 trillion. That would rival Saudi Aramco as one of the most valuable IPOs ever. Which raises another question. Is OpenAI really worth that much money? There are a lot of things that work in favor of OpenAI. The company led a revolution in the world of AI. It has a global compute footprint. It leads transformation across industries. It is backed by Microsoft, Amazon, Oracle, NVIDIA, and even the US government. Also, OpenAI's North Star is in chatbots. It is AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. That is machines that outperform humans at most economic tasks. If it can get there fast, it would be invaluable. But there's a lot of things that don't quite fit. First, the revenue. It's still modest. In the first half of 2025, OpenAI reported about $4.3 billion in revenue. It expects to exceed $13 billion for the year. But then again, losses are huge. OpenAI is projected to lose around $8 billion for 2025. Also, the AI unit economics remain unclear. The Bank of England warned AI stocks look frothy. Some think the AI bubble ends with a pop. Other thinks it ends with a Nobel Prize. Right now, it feels like a gold rush, but the gold is missing. Also, we are still years away from AGI. So this IPO is essentially a bet that AGI happens and OpenAI owns it when it does. If they pull it off, $1 trillion will feel cheap. But what if they don't? That's the big question right now. Either way, Sam Altman is building the world's most valuable company or the most expensive science project since the space race. And just like the space race, you can't take your eyes off it. Now let's talk about student visas. It's getting harder for Indian students to go abroad. Visa rejections are rising sharply and the trend is global. Canada is the latest to step up its crackdown. In August this year, nearly 3 out of 4 visa applications were denied. That's more than double the refusal rate from last year. The US and Australia are also imposing stricter checks. Visa approvals are falling, processing times are rising, and fraud concerns are reshaping policy. From Canada's crackdown on fake admission letters to the US adding social media screening, and Australia slashing student visa approvals by almost half. The study abroad dream is now running into new barriers. For thousands of Indian students, this is no longer just about getting an education. It's about tackling new immigration policies, increasing scrutiny, and a growing wall of rejection. Here's a report.
Getting a student visa is becoming harder, especially if you're from India. The latest data comes from Canada, and the numbers are striking. In August this year, Canada rejected 74% of all study permit applications from Indian students. That's more than double the rejection rate from 2023, which stood at 32%. Of the 4,500 applications filed by Indian students in August 2025, only around 1,200 were approved. Compare that to August 2023, when nearly 21,000 Indian students had applied. Back then, Indian students made up more than a quarter of all international applicants. Now, they're facing the highest rejection rate among top source countries. The overall global rejection rate was around 40%. Chinese applicants saw a 24% refusal rate, but for Indians, it was 74%. That's not just a number, it's a message. Canada has changed its approach. The country's immigration body, IRCC, says the new stance is part of a wider crackdown. The aim is to limit international student numbers and eliminate fraud. In 2023, Canadian authorities uncovered over 1,500 fraudulent Indian study visa applications. Many were linked to fake university acceptance letters. That scandal has reshaped policy and made immigration officers more cautious, especially when processing Indian applications. But this isn't just a Canada story, it's a global shift. Let's look at the United States. Student visa rejections there are also surging. In the last U.S. fiscal year, from October 2023 to September 2024, 41% of all F1 visa applications were denied. That's the highest level in over a decade. It's nearly double the rejection rate from 2014. In total, the U.S. received almost 680,000 F1 visa applications. It rejected around 280,000 of them. We don't have country-specific rejection rates, but one number stands out. Student visas issued to Indians dropped 38%. This is for first 9 months of 2024 compared to 2023. Earlier this year, the U.S. added a new screening layer. Now, all student visa applicants must disclose their social media profiles. Officers review these as part of the background check. Australia is also tightening its rules, and Indian students are again facing the consequences. As part of its plan to have net migration by 2025, Australia is cracking down on non-genuine students. That includes tougher English language tests, stricter visa conditions, more scrutiny of education agents. Between December 2022 and December 2023, the number of visas granted to Indian students dropped by 48%. Some institutions have even imposed blanket bans on Indian applicants. Officials say there's been a spike in incomplete applications and false documents, and that's leading to slower processing and more refusals. But these moves are being driven by a major policy shift. Immigration policies are getting stricter, and student visas are now caught in that net. For many countries, study visas were once a soft entry point. Come study, then stay, then work. Now, that model is being questioned. and the study, work, settle dream is becoming harder to achieve. For Indian students, the message is clear. Expect more checks, longer waits, and higher chances of rejection. What was once a clear path to global education is now a steep climb.
A city is running out of fuel. Its streets are quiet. Engines are off, lights are dim, and frustration is spilling over. This is not Gaza or Kyiv. It's Bamako, the capital of Mali, a country in West Africa. For weeks, a jihadist group has been tightening a siege. The group is called Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin, or JNIM. It's linked to Al-Qaeda. JNIM has cut off supply routes, it has attacked fuel tankers, it has strangled the city's economy. Its target is Mali's military junta. It's the same regime that promised security after 2 coups. That promise now appears to be in ruins. Schools are closed, hospitals are struggling, and over 4 million people in the city are running out of options. Our next report has more.
From above, it looks like a city frozen in place. Lines of cars snake through the streets. People wait for hours outside shuttered petrol stations. Engines silent, and frustration growing. This is Bamako, the capital of Mali. For 2 months now, a jihadist blockade has brought the city to its knees. A well-armed group linked to the Al-Qaeda is cutting off fuel routes. They are attacking tankers, burning trucks, and blocking highways. Their name is Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin, or JNIM. They control large parts of central and northern Mali, and they are now closing in on the capital. But this isn't an invasion. It's economic warfare. JNIM is not storming Bamako with guns. They are strangling it slowly, one road at a time. Fuel has become their major weapon. Imports have stopped and pumps have run dry. No petrol means no transport. No diesel means no electricity. No electricity means no work. No hospitals, no schools. The capital is running on fumes.
It's been about 3 weeks that we've been at a standstill. Sometimes you happen to get a tiny bit of fuel, but it can't serve many people, so we can't start selling. You risk being attacked by some fellow citizens. It's very difficult to truly describe the situation we're living in.
The government blames JNIM for the crisis. Fuel restrictions that cut its own supply lines. The army now escorts fuel convoys. Helicopters patrol border routes. But roads remain blocked, and fuel barely reaches Bamako. Mali has been fighting an insurgency for more than a decade. It began in 2012 when Islamist and separatist groups seized the north. France sent troops to help, but after years of fighting, peace never came. In 2020, the army seized power, promising stability. A second coup followed in 2021 under Colonel Assimi Goïta. Soon after, Russian mercenaries from the Wagner Group arrived, replacing Western troops. But the violence has only spread, as the conflict shows no sign of ending. The junta has cut ties with ECOWAS, expelled the UN mission, and turned away from Western partners. So foreign governments are taking no chances. The US, the UK, and Germany, among others, have urged their citizens to leave. Embassies are scaling down staff. Flights out of Bamako are full. But for Malians, there is nowhere to go. Civil servants walk to work. Generators have stopped. Markets are running out of food. Many fear the blockade could soon push the country into complete collapse. Yet this is not just Mali's crisis. It's part of a larger pattern spreading across the Sahel. Military juntas in Burkina Faso and Niger face the same threat. Each came to power promising order in the country. Now they are struggling to restore it. The UN calls the Sahel the world's deadliest region for terrorism. And if Bamako falls deeper into crisis, the region will feel it. The Sahel's wars are no longer local. They're linked by borders, weapons, and failures of governance. And Mali's instability could be what pushes the region past its tipping point.
Climate change is no longer a warning for the future. It's the story of present unfolding across the world. Floods, droughts, and wildfires are rewriting landscapes everywhere. And in Europe, one island shows just how deep the damage runs. Sicily, at the crossroads of Europe and Africa, just off Italy's southern coast. Once a postcard of Mediterranean beauty, it is now a picture of climate extremes. Its farmlands are shrinking, its shores are retreating, its people are finding new ways to survive. Experts say Sicily is warming faster than much of the world, and reports warn it soon could become Europe's next desert. Our final report has more.
Sicily, the heart of the Mediterranean, is changing faster than anyone imagined. Once a land of olive groves and golden wheat, it now faces a relentless barrage of climate disasters. Floods, wildfires, droughts, and rising seas, all within just a few years. In February this year, a storm tore through the hills of Saponara. Rain fell so fast it turned streets into rivers. 2 years earlier, wildfires surrounded Palermo, and between those two disasters, drought left the island's fields bone dry. What's happening here isn't bad luck, it's climate change, accelerating in real time. Reports suggest that parts of Sicily have already warmed by more than 2 degrees Celsius, far above the global average. That extra heat has turned the island's mild climate into one of extremes. Rain no longer comes gently, it comes all at once, after months of silence. The result, droughts that crack the soil, followed by floods that wash it away. Farmers say their crops no longer grow as they once did. Fields are drying out faster. Reservoirs are running low. Some towns are rationing water. In early 2024, Sicily's regional government declared a state of emergency during its worst drought in almost 20 years. More than 90 municipalities faced rationing, affecting over 800,000 people. Experts later found that droughts like these are now about 50% more likely because of human-driven global warming. But even as the land dries out, the sea is closing in. Coastal erosion is eating away at beaches and roads. Homes built decades ago now stand dangerously close to the shoreline. Across the island, the damage is visible. Italy's National Research Council warns that nearly 70% of Sicily is at risk of desertification. Land that once fed millions is slowly turning to dust. That's why reports now call it Europe's next desert. Yet Sicilians are refusing to give in. Some are reportedly reviving ancient grains that can survive on little water. Others are experimenting with tropical crops, mangoes, avocados, even macadamias that now thrive in the heat. But the struggle is not Sicily's alone. Across Europe, extreme weather is leaving a growing economic scar. Losses this year have already topped 43 billion euros, or roughly 49 billion US dollars. Experts warn that costs could rise by the end of the decade if disasters increase. The greatest damage has been in southern Europe, countries like Cyprus, Greece, Italy, and Spain. These are countries where heat, drought, and fires are becoming a yearly reality. So what's happening in Sicily is no longer isolated. It's part of a wider European shift where climate change is reshaping both the environment and the economy.
And now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. A part of medieval tower collapses in Rome. Holy water, blessed by Pope Leo, reaches Rio's Christ the Redeemer for COP30. And UK's Chester Zoo welcomes 2 rare Northeast African cheetah brothers. Finally, taking you back in history, on this day in 2008, Barack Obama was elected as the 44th President of the United States. He was also the country's first black president. Leaving you on that note, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Want the facts?
The latest developments?
News that gets straight to the point.
Well, we've got all three just for you. This is Firstpost Live, a brand new show, your window into what really matters.
Don't miss it.